Andy Jones, welcome to the podcast, man.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're finally doing it.
We're doing it. Yeah, you've been threatening for a while, but here we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. So I'd like to just start with, with everybody to introduce yourself, tell us your story and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, glad to. Well, I'm a lawyer here in Wilmington.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with a firm called Michael Best and Friedrich, and we're basically a business law firm.
Yep.
I help clients navigate issues, form businesses, sell businesses, deal with all the things that arise in that process in my day-to-day practice. And I'm pretty close to a Wilmington native. I wasn't born here,
Mm-hmm.
but moved when I was 3, so it's all I remember.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of growth in that time.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it's funny how, like in Wilmington, around the world they'll say 7 degrees of separation, you know somebody. But in Wilmington it might be like 1 or 2 maybe.
Yeah, you're not kidding. It's gotten bigger, but that is still the case.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we met, was just being at the same events. We know friends of friends, and then next thing you know, we're doing business together.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool, huh?
I mean, it was a year or less ago, right?
Yeah.
We were together at an event and had beer, and now we share mutual clients, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's the benefit of being in, I think, this business community in a smaller town like Wilmington.
Yeah.
Which is, the people you work with.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes it a lot more fun when you know who you're dealing with and actually helping them. And
Yeah.
so how did you want to become a lawyer? Tell us that story.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's probably the traditional lawyer story, which is I'm in high school and my parents say, hey, you're really good at arguing. You're a pain in the butt. Maybe you should look into what this thing is for a career, combined with an interest in public affairs, history,
Mm-hmm.
political science.
Yep.
And so I went to undergrad intending to go to law school. I went to undergrad and majored in political science because I thought that's what you need to do to go to law school.
Right.
And I went to Davidson College for undergrad and then Elon for law school.
Got it. I was going to ask. So.
Yeah, yeah. So, I sort of went down what one would think is the traditional lawyer path,
Mm-hmm.
because I just thought that's sort of what you needed to do.
Yep.
And so on that journey, in my first summer in law school, I interned with a business law firm.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time I'd wanted to be a prosecutor. The idea of going to law school and fighting for truth, justice, and the American way in the courtroom every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Putting the bad guys behind bars.
Yeah.
And in that first internship, that first summer, I saw what it was like to work with non-criminals. Like actually help the people that are job creators in the community, building businesses, navigating those issues. And that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that adjusted my focus really to what I'm doing now, which is helping those business owners thrive.
Yeah.
Never what I imagined it would be.
Yeah, you have whenever someone thinks about a lawyer, at least myself, it's just like you explained, in the courtroom every day,
Mm-hmm.
just fighting for justice and putting on, just an amazing show for the judge and the jury and all that.
I'm dressed most days like this.
Yeah.
This is not Matlock. This is not Atticus Finch. I'm not going to court in a tie. Now there are some lawyers that do, but
yeah,
it's there are a lot of different ways to use your law degree, and I found that the traditional prosecutor route just wasn't for me. Although that's what got me into the path.
Got it. So what year did you graduate Davidson?
2010.
Okay. So 2010, then straight to law
school, yeah.
At Elon.
And the process of finding a job out of law school does involve that summer program I mentioned.
Right.
So most lawyers will spend time with a law firm or a government office or something like that, a company maybe, to try out, hey, is this what I want to do for a living?
Absolutely.
And you leave one of those summer experiences with an offer. Right. And mine ended up being my first job, which was here in Wilmington.
Awesome. And during that internship or that summer, you realized that, hey, I think I kind of want to go more on the business route. And here you are today, still, doing business law, right?
Doing business law, yeah. Not ever with the type of firm or the type of clients, or really having as much fun as I ever imagined doing this. But it's been a great ride.
Yeah, definitely. So, you're now a managing partner for a law firm, which is, I mean, I want to talk about that because you're not just a lawyer, you're running a business, right? There's a whole nother aspect to what you're doing.
Yeah, that's
right.
So
I definitely want to dig into that. But I mean, how do you go from graduating law school to becoming a managing partner? That's a pretty cool story, I would imagine.
Yeah, it is, and I really have no idea how that happened. I mean, a lot of blessings certainly along the way.
Mm-hmm.
I started with a small general practice here in Wilmington, and spent about 4 years with them, and sort of at the end of that 4-year trajectory realized that maybe my clients needed a little bit more than what I had to offer there. So I joined a regional firm. We were a statewide firm called Forrest Firm, with probably 20-something lawyers at the time. And on that path, when I joined Forrest Firm, I realized that, hey, there's an opportunity to do more than just be a lawyer.
Right.
That the firm needed, we were growing rapidly with the aim of being North Carolina's business law firm. So we were hiring lawyers and opening offices around the state. A similar sort of entrepreneurial trajectory that a lot of your clients and my clients experience. And we were living that, and we needed somebody to help lead it. So we're in that journey at Forrest Firm, and at the time there was one partner. After a series of conversations, I became the second, and ended up sort of leading that effort as we grew from 25 to 50 people around the state. And totally unprepared to do anything like that. But you know, you sort of figure it out as you go. And over 2 years, we grew that firm, made it profitable, sold it to the firm I'm a part of now, which is a firm with 400 lawyers and offices around the country.
Oh my gosh!
So it's a journey from my first firm had 5 lawyers, and we've got 400. And not that bigger is better than smaller, but it's just been a really interesting career trajectory to step into leadership and grow a business of the practice of law along that journey.
Yeah, and I like how you use the term leadership, because I've been, I've always loved the idea of leadership and reading about leadership and how to be a better leader. And, a lot of it is stuff, there's some things you can learn, but at the end of the day, a lot of leadership is something that, it's just kind of innate in your personality.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, do they teach you leadership in law school?
Well, usually not, but that's a great question. One of the reasons I went to the school I did, Elon, is because that school is focused on combining lawyers and leadership, creating lawyer leaders.
Okay. I stand corrected.
So I mean,
good.
Well, I mean, there's some of it that you can't ever train, right? I mean, there's you have to know the personalities of the people you're leading and have some alignment on direction, all those things that you know well. But the basic elements of how do you position yourself well to be a leader of an organization is something that the law school intertwined with the curriculum. We're not just learning about the flagship cases in any practice area. Yeah. So it equipped me a little bit more, I guess, that together with some prior experiences as a Boy Scout, for example.
Yeah, for sure.
As you're growing up, have prepared you for leadership.
Yeah. So what would be, on that journey from being a lawyer to then taking on this role of, okay, now I'm a partner, and now I'm not just a partner, but I'm a leader in this organization to try to help build did they send you away for any more trainings or anything like that, or? No,
there weren't any trainings. It was on-the-job training.
I love it.
Dive straight in.
I love it.
We were at the firm that I started leading, Forrest Firm, and we were a small organization. When I took over, maybe $8 million top-line revenue and probably, 25 or 30 lawyers.
Got it.
So it wasn't a massive group, but it was a growing group. And you figure out what a balance sheet is, and you figure out how to put together your chart of accounts, and how you're going to invoice clients and get paid by clients, and how you pay your people. All these things are real challenges. We just kind of worked through the process and figured it out. There was no formal leadership training. There was no business development training. There was none of that stuff. I don't know. I probably would benefit from a lot of that, frankly.
Well, hey, there's no better way to learn other than just going and doing it and making some mistakes.
Oh, plenty of mistakes, no doubt.
What did your leadership team look like at the firm? Like, did you guys have, I mean, obviously I can ask, did you guys have a CFO? You
Yeah.
know, like a head of HR, you know,
Right.
what did your leadership team look like at that point?
Very different when I started to when I finished.
Right.
When I joined, it was basically led by one managing partner and some supporting cast, nobody with a real formal role.
Yep.
When we sold the firm, we really tried to take it from a law firm to a business. Law firms are generally run not the most efficiently, I think is probably a charitable way to say it, because the professional is also the leader of the business, so they're both the salesperson and revenue generation. They're the widget, right? Their deliverable is the legal service, and they're the leader of the business, so they're wearing all these hats. And we saw that there were some flaws in that, and we said, hey, let's build the structure of a business of the practice of law. So there was a finance director, HR director, operations director.
Got it.
We had AR, AP. We had all the people that you would expect to see in a real business operation, and it was functioning pretty well by the time we exited.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, any business to scale and to grow, it's all about getting good people, right?
Critical.
But with a professional services company where your product is like work out the door, people doing stuff, it's all that much more critical.
Oh yeah, the people are absolutely critical in the right seats, not just the right people, but in the right seats.
That's awesome. That's from, I think, from good to great. You got to have the right people in the right seats.
Yeah.
Yep. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah. You got any learning experiences that you can share with us, or any good war stories, so to speak, from figuring out how to build a business?
You know, I would say you probably hear this from a lot of people, but hire slow and fire fast.
Right.
You getting the right people in the right seats on the bus is hard. You're going to make mistakes. Do your due diligence to figure out if the person you're interviewing is going to be the right person. And once you figure out, once they're on the team, if they're not, move them to the right seat or move them off the bus.
Right.
We are very, being a leader is a relationship role. So you build a lot of relationship and a lot of relationship collateral with people.
Yep.
And it's hard to have the hard conversations. It's hard to make that choice to move somebody out of the seat or off the bus. But you have to do it fast because your organization does not benefit from that leniency.
I know. It's tough.
Really hard.
Yeah. So, I mean, hire slow, fire fast, you know. If you remember, like when you were conducting interviews, what were some of those first interview? What were some of the questions that you would ask your potential candidates to like first pass, like, all right, this guy's either in or out, you know, kind of like, you know, litmus test type
I think
stuff.
one of the most important things for me in an interview is just having a conversation. Don't start necessarily with a list of questions. See how they interact just in a social setting.
Yeah.
Talk about what their background is, why they're applying for a new job, what their interest is in this industry, in this firm. See how they navigate that. And then you'll get a real sense of a person just through questions like that. And then I really enjoy asking questions about what their prior employer or prior coworker would say about them.
Yeah.
Right? Make them think not just some prepared stock answer, but what is a criticism that somebody would have about me? What's a strength? What's a weakness?
Yep.
Put them in a position to think a little bit outside of the box about themselves.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. So, I mean, it's you have some people out there that are, you know, professional interviewers, I guess, so to speak. Have you had any situations where you thought like, hey, this is going to be a great person for this role, and then come in 3-6 months down the road, you're like, oh man, this is definitely not it.
Yeah, I think that happens to all of us. Yeah, there are certain people you can't tell how they're going to operate under pressure, whether it's work pressure, family pressure, whatever, financial pressure, right? The dynamics of life.
Yeah.
And you can't think to ask those questions ahead of time.
No.
And when you get into the situation, into the role, and it's dynamic and they're reacting in a way that you wouldn't expect of them, there's no way you could know that.
Yeah.
So oftentimes it may be the right person at the beginning and there's some evolution in the company, in the macro environment, and you just have to make a move.
Yeah. So comparing the managing partner, managing director type responsibilities versus serving, client service, you and I are trading emails typically between 5 and 7 a.m. in the morning. So where the heck do you get time to do all this? And, what does that kind of balance look like between running a business and, I guess, kind of working in the business, so to speak?
Yeah, if you figured out that balance, let me know. It is not easy.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, in my role as a professional, client service, customer service comes first.
Yep.
So we got to make sure that our clients are being served well.
Yep.
And getting the deliverable that they need within the time frame that they need it. And so for me, that's meant that I always put that before whatever the running of the business of the firm need is. And I put that first, both sort of in priority, but also in time. The emails that you're joking about we exchange, I've found that you only have so much time in the day. Get up at 4 in the morning and send emails from 4 to 7 before, somebody's knocking on your door with an issue about the business, or a client's calling about something that's urgent, or whatever happens that throws you off your schedule for the day. You handle the most priority things first, and then you've got the bandwidth to do the rest.
Yep.
And it's hard with, both of us got young families, right? So you want to spend time when you get home from work with your wife, with your child, doing things you enjoy. Maybe you go out and have dinner with friends, right?
Yep.
God forbid you do that. So it's hard to balance it, and you just have to find time in the day. But starting with what's the most priority thing on your to-do list, I've found to be pretty effective.
Yeah. What is your process for prioritization? Like, are you like just a notepad guy? Like, I just get a notepad out each morning and jot down, or do you have like a system? How do you
I've got a
manage
system,
that?
and I could nerd out about this. This is one of my favorite things about my practice. So I've tried a bunch of different things over the years, and I'm definitely a list person. If it's not on a list, it doesn't happen. So I have like a project management task list you can think of.
Nice.
And then I have a to-do list that I work from. If you look at my computer screen, those two are open all day, every day.
Got it.
The project management list is every client I have, every matter I have, who on my team is working on it, what our deadlines are, so I can have a snapshot of what we're doing for our clients. And then my to-do list is that specific discrete thing I need to do for them that day.
Right.
And I update that. The benefit for me as a lawyer is we keep our time, usually in like 6-minute increments.
Yeah.
Which is a weird way to operate as a human and as a professional.
Yeah.
And that requires you to be very specific in the work you're doing, for whom you're doing it, because you got to track and bill that.
Yep.
So every morning when I get up and start my day, I know what I've accomplished for my to-do list for the last day, because I've either billed it or I've not.
Right.
And I know what's on my to-do list for the next day, and I actually use Microsoft To Do, which I think is pretty effective. It creates bullet points, and you can sort of categorize it and schedule it. But that's how I work through my day. And you see, you almost never get everything done on your to-do list, and you push it out to the next day and set your priorities every morning. Yeah.
When you go home at the end of the day, what gives you the most satisfaction, or like what is your barometer of I was productive today?
It is not the billable hour, I will promise you.
Yeah.
Although that's how we keep track of our time.
Yeah.
I can tell when we're able to accomplish a task.
Yeah.
Like if I go back to the concept of my matter spreadsheet, each of those things, what really drives me is that each of those things is critically important to that client that it's assigned to, right? Yep. We're buying a business, we're selling a business, we're helping them through a lawsuit, whatever the issue is. And when I feel most rewarded is when I'm able to cross that off. We've completed this thing, right? Yeah. We've done the transaction, the wires have come, everybody's gotten paid, or the litigation's been settled, or the employee's been hired or terminated, whatever the thing is. That's what's most rewarding. And so I view checking off each of those discrete tasks just as a step on that journey to that complete.
Yeah, cool. I know we were both laughing when you said we need to, we track our time in 6-minute intervals. And yeah, I could imagine that being very tedious. But I mean, if I was forced to track my time in 6-minute intervals, I'm sure I would be more efficient, because there's this quote. It says, "What gets measured gets managed."
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you can truly look back on your day and know exactly how much time you spent doing what, you got a pretty good picture about how effective you are with your time.
How do you bill your time?
Our model is based on a fixed monthly fee, which is like, a different philosophy in terms of, I wouldn't say it's a different philosophy. It's just the way I've landed on that is really to keep it simple. And also, I just didn't want to bill time. But I think I was actually afraid to tell people what my hourly rate is, which is something I definitely want to get, which is just something I definitely want to get into when we talk about hourly rates.
Yeah.
But we bill just a monthly fixed price.
Okay.
And the way that we figure that out is we go through our process. We just, diagnostic. What do you need? What are your goals? This is what we're going to deliver. Okay, it's going to be X amount of dollars a month. Some months we might work a little more. Some months we might work a little less. But, the client knows exactly what they're getting into. No surprise invoices.
How do you know if your team's being efficient?
So, I'll tell you. Right now we've grown. When it was me and Elise, when it was me, it was like, all right, I could figure this out pretty easily, right? When it was me, just Elise and I, had a pretty good sense of it. When it's just Elise, Dan, and I, all right, it was like, okay, all right, I think, we're doing pretty good. But now, there's 6 of us, and it's definitely a huge gap that we have. We're implementing a practice management software right now, which is exactly like what you described as your project management software, where it's a full end-to-end CRM and workflow management. So we'll be able to, basically lay out all our, kind of like top-level tasks, do some capacity planning, and then within that, we'll be able to track our time.
Oh, that's great. So you will actually track.
We will.
Every minute?
I don't know yet. I'm going to let Elise be the one that has to make the rules.
Fair enough.
But at the end of the day, the reason why we want to track time would be for, we're running a business. We want to see if we're efficient and effective. If another thing, also, I know that there's been situations where we have not been as profitable as we should be on certain engagements, but it just, kind of is what it is. And there's some where we've been, where we've done well, but at the end of the day, it's all about delivering value.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's what what you guys do. But the way I think about it is, if I've accumulated knowledge over 10 years working in various industries, working for various businesses, and I can come into your business and solve a problem that can save you tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on an ongoing basis, I'm not going to charge an hourly rate for that, right? Because if you didn't hire me, you could have gone and hired someone else, and it would take them 50 hours to figure it out, right? Whereas I've done this before, so I could just get it done quick, and it's right,
No, I think that model, that concept reflects a lot with what we try to do. People make fun of lawyers all the time for the hourly rate, right? They're afraid to pick up the phone because the meter starts running. They're going to get a bill they don't expect.
Yeah.
That happens. It will happen.
It happens
no question.
with anybody, though.
It happens.
I mean, not just lawyers. Your engineering consulting company. You name it. Your
fractional CFO.
Yeah, your fractional CFO. If it's someone else.
But one of the things I strive to do with our clients, and I think most of our team does this too, is we try and be predictable and proactive in that billing. So yes, we may be billing by the hour, but we know that this size transaction is typically 1% to 2% of the total value of the transaction. Or we know that this formation is $2,500, or this will package is whatever.
Right.
So if you can go in and set the expectation, even if we're billing by the hour, as long as something doesn't come in outside of scope,
Exactly.
then we should meet that expectation for you. And the surprise, the pain, the thing that people don't like about lawyers is mollified to some degree.
Yep.
So my view is this happens and we're going to try and minimize it, but a client should not be surprised by a bill, and we should minimize the circumstances in which a client is surprised by the bill. And if we're doing that, we're communicating well and we're doing our job well.
Yeah. Man, that was awesome, because it's making me, I mean, everything you just said makes perfect sense, right? Yes, we're billing by the hour, but if we're communicating, if we're managing expectations, if we truly understand what our client needs and what we need to do, there shouldn't be any surprises, because we can give them an idea of what it's going to take and what risks there are. And if something goes wrong, we're going to talk, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I was saying, I just have used that as a cop-out. Seriously. I mean, like, if I really look at myself in the mirror and really poke at the model, I say all this, but yeah, am I being lazy? Am I afraid to, tell people what I really should be getting paid for an hour? Which that isn't the case anymore. I mean, I feel pretty,
Sure.
I feel good about that, but it actually has. We have started with some, and now that we're busier as well, we've got a good enough workload in the door of recurring work where we can be a little bit more selective of the folks that we bring in. And if I see something coming down the pike and I'm like, okay, that's, we don't know, we're not going to know until we really get in.
Yeah.
And that's when I say, hey folks, we're going to start with a $2,500 retainer. This is what our hourly rate is going to be. I expect it to be between 15 and 20 hours. And once we dig into it, we'll know.
Right.
And then we talk, right? So I guess I've kind of started to do that a little bit better.
That's
now.
the best way you can. In our world, I'm analogizing what you described to like a litigation, like a piece of litigation in court where you don't know if the judge is going to rule your way. You don't know if the key witness is going to drop dead. You don't know if the opposing counsel is a pain in the butt. And all those things drive costs in different directions. And so if you're able to say, hey, we think a range to get from A to B in this lawsuit is going to cost X to Y.
Right.
At least you're communicating that range. Then you go to the next chunk, right? We're going to go from B to C and it's going to cost whatever, Z to A.
Yep.
So that level of communication, you'd be surprised. That's not what the majority of service professionals do.
No,
because it's
you're right.
easier to say, here's an engagement letter, here's a rate, multiply it by the hour, set it and forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The risk is on the client.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's we're sitting here joking about people joking about lawyers. And there's bad actors in any business, right?
Yeah.
You get a couple bad apples that give everybody a bad name, but I mean, why do people love to hate on lawyers?
Well, we're a pretty easy profession. I think it's a combination of a bunch of things. I think lawyers are largely type A personalities, at least the ones that make themselves visible in the community.
I hear you.
And visible in lawsuits. So here's a big loudmouth who's advocating for a position. Half the time maybe I agree with, half the time I don't.
Yep.
Makes us a little easy to demonize. I think it's tied to the fact that a lot of what we do is complicated, but not in a way people can't understand, just in a way that's not communicated well to them. And so when you talk about case law coming from the common law from England, when you talk about how to interpret statutes and regulatory bodies and the intersection of all that, it's easy to get, for people's eyes to glaze over.
Right.
And so when you're expensive and you're a loudmouth and you're dealing in an area people don't understand, right, we're now in a place where it's kind of, it's easy to say, I don't like that guy or that gal. And the other layer I'll add on top of that is, at least in the litigation context, you are adversarial. And so it is easy to say, if I'm suing you, if you're suing me, it's easy to say, man, that lawyer is making a disingenuous argument. That is a fact or a position I don't agree with. So that must be a bad person.
Yep.
When the reality is you and I may have a different set of facts because we just took something different away from our conversation. Right. Or we emphasized a certain provision over another, or we read a text message differently, or the intonation in a voice differently, and left with totally different understanding. So it's not as if the lawyer is being disingenuous, they're advocating for the position that their client believes to be the truth.
Got it.
But that sort of situation makes it easier to demagogue our profession too.
Yeah.
I really want to fight against that.
No, I know.
I'm not sure if we're helping it today with the podcast or not. I'd really like to change that.
No, I think we definitely are, and and that's also part of like the cool thing about doing this is to get to know the person behind the desk or behind the business or whatever. But so in your experience, and really, this is all about small business and community, and trying to help people achieve their goals and stuff. What are some of the most consistent problems that you work on to help business owners? What are those top 3-5 common issues that you see regularly?
Well, I'll dump it into one bucket and then maybe we can break those apart. To provide a little context, I work with small business owners, mid-sized business owners across industries. So this doesn't come from one particular industry or one particular structure, but it's not being proactive. And what I mean by that is probably because of some of the things that we've talked about already, people are afraid to get their lawyer involved. Mm-hmm. Let's get the deal terms done before we call our lawyer. Let's try and terminate this employee before we call our lawyer. Mm-hmm. Let's see if we can figure out what kind of trademark rights we have before we call our lawyer. All those things are things people do or really don't even think to do before they get their lawyer involved. And then our job gets much more expensive.
Right.
Because we're playing cleanup. We're dealing with a dispute where there's no contract. We're dealing with a contract where the provisions don't say what they should. And all that to say, the thing I wish most of my clients or prospective clients would do more of is loop us in. Treat us as a business partner. Treat us as a member of your internal C-suite. Mm-hmm. And tell us, in 3 months we want to make this acquisition. What should we be doing? Mm-hmm. Tell us, we're thinking about selling the business. How do we prepare ourselves for that? Yep. My most rewarding client relationships are those where I feel like I'm a part of that inner circle and I can add a piece of advice, which is a critical point. It is not as if they are coming to me on a mountain on high to deliver to them the answer. Right. I am a member of that team. And particularly with startup clients, business survival is the most important consideration. It's not risk mitigation. It's not, have we checked this legal box? Are our terms and conditions the strongest they can be? It's just survival. So my advice may be one of many things that the CEO and the owner takes into account and says, okay, we heard that, but we're willing to take the risk. Or, oh, that's a good point. Maybe we'll go down the route that the lawyer recommended. Bring us into the conversation. Let us be proactive. Yeah. That's number one for small business owners.
Got it. And that makes sense. I mean, what you said made me think of a point is, I feel like lawyers are like the original fractional executive. Like if you really look back in time, I mean, just as you described it, right, is being part of the inner circle to help a business or a leadership team make good decisions to help achieve their goal or their strategy, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So, and in most businesses we still work with, there are no in-house counsel. So we are that fractional resource. With some clients of ours, they have a lawyer that they've hired on staff and they come to us for a discrete thing or for a second opinion, and that's a great relationship too. We love those. But it's feeling like you're a partner with whoever that decision maker is. So yeah, we were outsourced fractional resources before it was cool.
Yeah, no, exactly. You guys are the original fractional. But so let's say, I'm not pre-revenue, but I'm a small business, just trying to get my business up and running. Obviously, I need to be focused on revenue, right? Like I need to make some money before and I tell, people talk to me, they're like, I'm starting a business, what should I work, my accounting and all this. I'm like, dude, just, here's a couple, get a QuickBooks, connect your bank account and, go generate some revenue and then come back and we'll, and we'll talk. What would be like, don't spend money on accounting right now. Spend money on acquiring customers. What would be like, your advice to that small business owner, not from the accounting, but from the legal perspective, like I'm starting a business, I'm starting to get some revenue. what should I do to make sure I'm, just kind of covering the basics, or at least setting a foundation to be able to come back and build on it from a legal perspective?
It's a great question. It's a great question. Start with the entity, right? You think about, through what vehicle am I operating as a business?
Yep.
You and I selling our services without more, we're just sole proprietors. You and I do it together, we're in a partnership. You and I go to the North Carolina Secretary of State and form an entity. That could be a corporation or an LLC. And there are all other different sort of host of ways we could do that. Those are important initial questions. So when I'm talking to a small business owner, it's okay, what's the vehicle we're going to use to operate the business, and why?
Got it.
Are there more than one owner? All these different considerations we take into account. Who are your customers and where's your revenue coming from? Because we want to make sure that your customer relationship is clean and clear. That doesn't necessarily mean a lengthy contract. It may mean a checkbox on the website of terms and conditions.
Yeah.
It may mean a simple order form. If you think like service professionals that come to the house, you sign something whenever they do the work. Those are actually contracts. So it depends on the relationship, but how are you documenting your customer and you in terms of what's expected of each of you?
Got it.
And then making sure that your major internal risks are covered. If you're collecting data, is that data protected? If you have employees, is your relationship with your employees clear?
Yeah.
That they are in fact employees?
The classic 1099 versus W-2.
Totally.
I'm sure that's probably one
issue.
of the bigger ones for most businesses.
Do you have an employee handbook that governs all the expectations of them in the workplace? And there are a lot of people that aren't lawyers that do that well that you can have to advise you. But that sort of suite of questions is what I would start with a small business owner to think about. And one of the things that we do that I really like is we have a whiteboard session that we have with early client relationships. And that whiteboard session is a list of 50 questions that we've come up with over the years of working with small businesses. And it covers all the categories of legal things you can think of, from real estate to estate planning, business to litigation, HR. We do that whiteboard session over about 3 hours. And we work through the kind of questions you and I are talking about and say, okay, from this whiteboard session, here are the red, yellow, and green. We try to make it really simple. Categories of things that you need to work on proactively. And then we tell our business owner clients that about half the time you call us is going to be reactive. It's something that wasn't on this checklist but pops up and you call us about. Yep. And you can actually schedule about 2 to 3 years worth of proactive legal work with a new client in that triage priority way. That's been really effective for some of our small businesses.
Nice. One of the things that you talked about was the entity and the vehicle for which we're going to do business, and then you mentioned partnership.
Yeah.
That I haven't been around for a long, too long, but man, partnerships. And people have warned me. Someone joked is like, a partnership is like being married but without the sex. You get in a fight when you're married.
Absolutely.
You make up, whatever. Not in a business partnership. And how many sideways, things start off good. We're 50-50 partner. I'm gonna put in money. He's gonna put in his know-how, and we're gonna build this business. And the next thing you know, it's like,
often. And it's not always without the sex. Sometimes we have personal partners that are also business partners, and that is a nightmare that I don't wish on anybody.
Oh my gosh.
When it goes wrong.
Oh no.
But yeah, it is often that two people who intend to be in good faith business together have some disagreement.
Of course.
Now, when you go through an intentional process of creating a business and forming an entity, sometimes you'll create an operating agreement that says, what happens when we get in a disagreement, right? Who are we going to call on to mediate this for us? How are we going to do that? What happens if I want to buy you out or you want to buy me out? All those things are important, in my view, to talk about on the front end. And when you don't do that, you end up in these really sticky litigation messes where a party could ask a judge to dissolve a partnership, or you could sue the other partner for a breach of duties you contend exist. And that really doesn't end well for anybody. No. Even if somebody wins that lawsuit, it is a win despite the process and the disruption.
Yeah. And I think, now that we're just talking about it, but if you're going into business with someone else, a partner, getting an operating agreement is probably worth the investment up front.
Absolutely.
Because the questions that you're going to, you don't know what you don't know. And you got to plan for the worst and hope for the best. But I wonder how many businesses that have been started, if they had gone through the actual process of putting together an operating agreement and asking these difficult questions, would have actually never started, because they're like, this is it. We're not on the same page.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, just like he's saying this, I'm saying this, we think we're on the same page, but then when we actually have to answer these detailed questions, it's kind of like, you know what, maybe this isn't like a good idea.
It is a version of marriage counseling for business
Yeah,
owners.
exactly.
I mean, totally. It's, when you go see the pastor before you get married, it is that valuable.
Yeah.
Because this business relationship is like a marriage, and you got to flesh those issues out.
Absolutely.
And we talked about my story, being in a partnership with one other owner of a forest firm.
Yeah.
We had our fair share of issues.
Sure.
And we had a relationship and a commitment and a process to kind of work through those.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still, we're in business today, so it worked out well. But you have to go in on the front end. I feel like I'm a counselor now, like a personal counselor. But you have to go in with those things in mind.
Yeah, I mean, well, it also goes to show you that someone like yourself, you're a lawyer, but I mean, you're a lot more. You're a trusted advisor to help people think of the bigger picture, right? Like you put on a couple different hats. It's like, yeah, I'm the lawyer. Yeah, I'm the marriage counselor. Yeah, I'm the, I'm your risk man. Your risk management, function,
Absolutely.
asking tough questions.
If you're doing it right, you're asking those questions,
Yeah.
and you're causing people to think about things they wouldn't otherwise.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen, you and I, we've been working together on a couple clients, and obviously we're not going to share anything, but, working through the operating agreement process has been, I think, one of the most educational parts for me, is to just figure out, like, for example, we're 50-50 partners. If we have a disagreement, there's two partners, 50-50, so what happens?
What happens? Yeah.
What are some of the, bylaws or kind of processes? If I'm a 50-50 partner and we disagree, what's a pretty good process of trying to get some type of direction?
Yeah, there are a number of things we see with clients that really vary in terms of severity, I think is the way I would describe that. You can, the nice thing about an operating agreement is you can pretty much put whatever you want in there. Right. About how you intend to operate the business. Yep. So some clients will say, hey, we want to engage in a voluntary mediation, which is a meeting. You sit around a table like this and talk about the issues that you're having in the business in front of a neutral, maybe a judge, maybe a lawyer.
Got it.
And nobody can force anybody to enter into a resolution, but you talk about it, you exchange your feelings and your views, and maybe you voluntarily enter into a resolution.
Yep.
That's one way to do it. We have people who agree to select a third party. It's interesting. Sometimes when we have like related owners, maybe they're siblings or cousins or something, and they'll say, yeah, you and I both respect uncle or aunt, whomever,
right.
And we're going to subject the issue to them. We're going to say whatever they decide on this thing goes. Sometimes we have people who don't put those processes in, but they decide that they're going to have a buy-sell option. Mm-hmm. If you and I have come to a deadlock, we can't agree on what we're going to do with the business. You can offer to buy my interest at a price, or you can offer to sell your interest at a price, and I get to elect which one it's going to be.
Yep.
Right? Name a price, and one of us is getting out. Those are three that we frequently see with clients, and you can probably ideate on a bunch more, but those have worked pretty effectively.
Rob Kaiser was in here telling me about that. Is that like a Texas or Mexican standoff?
That's right, yeah.
Which one is it?
I think it's, well, it depends on how PC we want to be. Let's call it Texas.
Got it. Well, actually, man, it's funny you said that. I met a guy in a leadership group a couple weeks ago. And I mean, me just being ignorant, I was like, he's dark skin. I mean, like from Mexico.
Yeah.
Like it was very obvious. And I asked him, I was like, where are you from, man? Just getting to know each other. He's like, we're from Texas. And I was like, oh, cool, whatever. We start talking. And then so I'm like, so where's your family from? He's like, Texas. I was like, no, I know, but like, where's your family from? And I asked him, I was like, aren't they, like from Mexico? He's like, dude, I'm from Texas. And I mean, if you really think about it, he's like, Texas used to be part of Mexico. Is what he was saying. He's like, I'm from Texas. And I was like, damn, I am an idiot.
You got to be careful these days with
I know. It was all good. And I actually learned. I was like, man, that's something pretty cool. That was random, but we'll call it a Texas standoff.
It's very effective for business owners. I think I saw that episode with Rob. That caught my eye. That was a good recommendation of his. Yeah. But being in partners with somebody, you want to think about those things. You don't ever want to have to come close to triggering that, right? Exactly. You want a relationship with somebody where you think we're going to be able to work through this, like a marriage, right? Yeah. If it requires counseling, we're going to go to counseling, but we're going to find a way to work through this.
Yeah. So, dispute resolution is probably one of the more important parts of an operating agreement, outlining that. Another big one is, and this might be part of dispute resolution, but what about, putting a value on the business? Let's say we're partners, unfortunately you get hit by a car, you're disabled, or, you pass away, and, whoever is in line to take over, might not have the business acumen or the skill set that I went into business with Andy, not Andy's heir or whatever, right? So how does, business valuations, kind of exit strategy, planning for?
Yeah, that's, in my view, that's the most important part of an operating agreement.
Okay.
We are all temporary stewards of our business. And what I mean by that is, at some point, either voluntarily or involuntarily, we're going to stop being in our business.
Yep.
The turnip truck's going to hit us, like the example you gave us, or we're going to sell it, or we're going to wind it down and say we're going to enjoy retirement or something else. So how do you deal with that termination of the business ownership is the most important part of the document. And what I see oftentimes is clients put in what's called a buy-sell agreement, which is a provision of the operating agreement that outlines triggering events and outlines what happens when those events are triggered. And what I mean by a triggering event is something happens to you. Your death, your permanent disability, your conviction of a felony, bankruptcy. There are a number of things we can think about that would trigger the option of either the other member to buy or the company to buy, or the requirement that the other member or the company buy your interest in the business.
Yep. Okay.
Which leads you to the question of valuation that you mentioned, which is critical. And we've seen that a number of ways in operating agreements. There are some types of businesses where you can comfortably say, hey, the book value, or some multiple of the book value, or some multiple of some calculation, gross revenue, net profit, EBITDA, whatever the thing is, gets you there. There are some businesses where we're just going to throw up our hands and say we're going to get a business valuation, right? And you're going to pick somebody, and if I don't agree with that person, we each pick somebody, and there's the average, whatever that calculation is, we hire a professional. And then there are other businesses where we actually just sort of agree what the value is and reevaluate it every 12 months.
Okay.
We'll have an exhibit that says you and me agree the business is worth $1 million, and that's in place for 12 months. The next 12 months, we'll enter into a new agreement.
Got it.
All of those have been effective ways to deal with that. A big asterisk I'll put by this whole topic is, how do you fund those obligations?
Right.
Because you and me can agree that the business is worth $10 million, and if I don't have $10 million in liquidity when you die, what is that covenant worth?
Right, exactly.
I don't have anything to meet it with. So how do you make sure that you have the liquidity needed in that event? A lot of our financial advisor and insurance professionals can answer that better than I can, but you can get insurance products in place to help fund those things. Or if for whatever reason we're not insurable for a reasonable cost, you and I can agree on a payment plan, right? We can say you pay it over time, you pay my heirs over time, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So those are really nuanced considerations based on the situation, but I encourage everybody to think about those.
Cool. No, I think that's some pretty good stuff. I mean, just to kind of recap on that, I'm a small business owner, and I got an idea, and I'm nervous about my accounting, I'm nervous about my legal stuff. Just find a good, trustworthy professional and have a conversation with them. They can probably set you straight in about an hour, right? I mean,
they can.
At least to like get you to the next.
The foundation.
Call me back in 2 months, or when you get to this level, or when you hire your first employee, or something like that and let's talk. But
the foundational stuff. And if I could add a point to that, which is like find the right person for you. There are a ton of lawyers out there, right? Oh my gosh. And I'm not the best fit for everybody.
Right.
And the guy on the street's not the best fit for everybody. You want somebody that shares your business goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want somebody that is a personality you enjoy talking to. Yep. You want somebody who you have a level of confidence in their ability to be responsive. And that varies based on the business owners, and that varies based on the lawyers. So talk to a bunch of lawyers and figure out who you want to talk to and spend time with.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
It's important.
And I'd be the first to echo that. You know, there's people that I talk to, and I tell them, I'm like, you know, if this isn't the right fit, here's 3 other people that I recommend. Mm-hmm. I'm happy, or hey, you know, we're not really at that point. You know, talk to Joe over here. He'll get you set up, but you know, call me back when you get to that kind of next level or something like that.
That's important.
Or man, this is way above my pay grade. Call
somebody
Andy.
else is a better fit. Yeah. We're gonna keep passing them along.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say that you won the lottery tomorrow, $500 million. What would you do with your time?
That's interesting. I was just talking with a friend about this last week. I don't know that I'd do anything different.
Yeah.
For a while, I'd keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd create a foundation and give a lot of money away.
Yeah.
But in terms of day to day, this is not a therapy session for me, so I won't get into all the details. But I'm just not a person that's going to be happy sitting on a beach, you know, drinking a cocktail all day. I want to make a difference, and maybe I'd spend more time on community service and less time with clients, and probably have a nicer car or a couple other things I'd buy, right?
Yeah,
maybe a plane and a pilot. But those things aside, like the tangible things aside, this is going to sound really corny, but I am doing something with my life that makes me feel very fulfilled. And so why would I give that up for money?
That's awesome. I mean, well, it comes through in everything that you do. You know, like you just, you know, whenever I'm with you, you truly enjoy doing what you're doing, and it comes through. It's cool how you can tell the people that have found, you know, their place or their calling, their professional calling, and I think that says a lot about you.
I'm glad that comes through.
So.
What are you doing with yours? Well, the second $500 million. The first, we already know you're here. You're sitting here.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, I don't know, man. It's so hard to really think about that. But it took me a while. It took me quite a while to find what I'm doing now. And to your point, you know, I really do believe this. I probably wouldn't change much, you know, because I think I'd be afraid if I stopped doing what I was doing, what that would turn into. What I would do is I would want to do bigger and better. I think what I would do is say, all right, I got a budget. I can go hire more great people, or I can invest in my people so that I can step back from working in the business and do more podcasts and do more networking and do more business development and maybe get into some, you know, business advocacy, some local politics.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, yard signs for Chris, huh?
No, definitely not, man. But I mean, what you said, you know, I mean, you basically said you want to make the world a better place. I'm kind of paraphrasing a little bit. You know, I think you want to have a positive impact in the community, and I didn't realize that. It took me a little while to realize that that's really what I like doing too. Is I just like helping people.
Yeah.
You know.
I won't get too sort of distant on this, but we're only here for a limited period of time on this earth. And over the last year, I got married. We're having a kid. We have had a lot that happened in life. Yeah. And it seems to me, through that process and conversations with people I trust, legacy has become a word that's really jumped out. Like the legacy that we leave with the people we impact and the things we do is critically important. And it's so fleeting. We're going to be gone, and there's going to be 5 more generations after us. And what do they remember about the values and the lessons that we left the next generation? So that kind of goes back to my answer about like not feeling fulfilled sitting on a beach. What am I doing with this limited time that God's given me on this earth, and I want to do more with it. You know, we should leave a legacy.
Definitely. And I forgot to say, if I won the lottery, I would definitely surf a lot more. And I would definitely surf, and I would definitely travel a lot more, and I would definitely surf a lot more. But yeah, I wouldn't. You know, I need to have some work to do.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the beach for 26 weeks of the year. That's fine, right? It's the other 26.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Well, so tell us, if, you know, I listen to this podcast and I want to get in touch with Andy, or I got a business problem, or I've got a life problem. I want to talk to Andy about it. I think he can solve it.
I'm not the solution to life problems, I promise you.
How do we get in touch with you? What's the best way to find you?
Yeah. I think I mentioned at the top, I'm a part of a firm called Michael Best and Friedrich. I think it's michaelbest.com. Look up our Wilmington office. We've got a great group of lawyers here. You can reach out to Chris. Chris knows how to get a hold of me.
I do.
I would, it'd be a pleasure to chat with any of the business owners that listen to your podcast about the issues they have in their business, whether or not we can solve it. And to my earlier point, whether or not I'm a good fit, right? I probably know a lawyer who may be. So it would be a pleasure to chat with those folks, just like it is to work together with you and your other clients.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I hope it wasn't too dry.
No, this was good, man. I think we got a lot of the right balance of fun and getting some like content out there that people might actually help them navigate some of the issues they're dealing with their business.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
It's been good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, dude.